You're tuned in to Beyond the Known. In 1974, humanity shouted into the void. A single radio signal packed with the story of who we are, our DNA, our solar system, our technology, was launched into the stars from Arecibo Observatory. For decades, there was silence. Then in 2001, silence shattered. Next to the Chilbolton radio telescope in England, a colossal formation pressed itself into a field of wheat overnight. Its shape mirrored our cosmic message, but not exactly. Our DNA was rewritten. A new solar system was shown. Even the figure of the sender was no longer human. Was this the reply humanity had been waiting for, or the most elaborate hoax ever staged on Earth?
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Beyond the Known. Today, we are confronting a geometric marvel etched onto our planet's agricultural landscape, crop circles. It's a phenomenon that, well, it sits right at that fascinating intersection of human deception, mathematical mystery, and some genuinely puzzling scientific findings.
It really does. And it forces us to ask, what exactly are we looking at here? Are these elaborate art projects some kind of unknown natural physics or possibly messages?
That's the core question. Our journey today explores these complex formations. We'll look into their known origins, some of the truly captivating accounts surrounding them, the more fringe interpretations seeing them as cosmic communication, and crucially, the scientific data that tries to ground this whole discussion in physical reality.
Right. So to understand the mystery, we first have to define what we're actually talking about. Generally, a crop circle is understood as a formation where cereal crops, things like wheat, barley, sometimes rapeseed, are flattened down into specific geometric patterns.
And these patterns aren't just simple circles anymore, are they? They range from those initial simple rings to, well, stunningly complex pictograms covering huge areas.
Exactly. But the critical distinction, the thing researchers focus on between, say, a genuine anomaly and a straightforward hoax, lies in the plant structure itself, how the plants are actually flattened.
Can you elaborate on that? What's the key difference?
In what are considered the more anomalous circles, the plant stems are bent over, nearly flat to the ground, but crucially, they're bent at the nodes, those little jointed knuckles along the stalk. And they're bent without being broken or mowed or just ripped out.
So it's a gentle but firm bend right at a specific point on the plant. That sounds, well, difficult to do quickly and on a large scale without specialized tools.
Precisely. It's a subtle point, but it's profound. It's really the hinge upon which this whole debate swings. How do you achieve that effect across hundreds of feet of crop, often overnight?
And this isn't exactly a new thing, is it? I mean, the modern craze started later, but there's history here.
There is. While the phenomenon really achieved global notoriety in the late 20th century, the history of unusual patterns appearing in fields actually stretches back centuries. The earliest reference people often point to is the 1678 mowing devil woodcut.
Ah, yes, the Hertfordshire woodcut. It shows this, well, demonic figure cutting oat circles for a farmer who was too cheap to pay a proper reaper, right?
That's the one. It suggests that these kinds of mysterious field patterns have long been part of folklore, often ascribed to supernatural or, non-human entities. But the phenomenon we recognize today really exploded in the early 1980s.
Primarily in England, wasn't it? Especially Wiltshire.
Yes, overwhelmingly in southern England, particularly Wiltshire, often appearing near ancient historical sites like Stonehenge and Avebury. This concentration in areas already steeped in history and myth certainly added to the intrigue.
And these weren't just simple circles anymore by then.
No, they started evolving rapidly. These formations defied easy explanation. They'd appear overnight, sometimes on a colossal scale, spanning hundreds of feet. Researchers quickly moved beyond classifying simple circles to documenting highly complex designs, sometimes called pictograms, or non-geometrically downed crop.
Patterns that seemed, frankly, almost impossible to produce manually in just a few hours of darkness, especially with the precision involved.
The location choice often fueled the mystery, too. Wiltshire, as you mentioned, is known for its ancient monuments and ley lines, places perceived by some to have special energy. It became the undisputed epicenter.
Investigators often noted the way the crop was laid down, too, didn't they? Not just stomped flat.
Right. Descriptions often mention a kind of swirling pattern, as if laid down by some kind of energy, with a precision that's very different from the random, messy breakages you'd expect from people just trampling through with planks.
And the physical characteristics, the bent, not broken stems, the mathematical precision.
Those remain key. The patterns are often mathematically very precise, sometimes incorporating complex geometry or ratios. And the flattening mechanism itself seems gentle, yet powerful enough to sometimes weave the stalks together intricately at the base.
Weaving. That really doesn't sound like stomping with a board.
No, it suggests perhaps some kind of invisible force moving through the field, rather than something heavy and physical being dragged or rolled. Plus, the fact that the plants often recover and continue growing even after being laid flat further complicates the idea that every single circle is just a mundane prank.
Okay, so knowing what crop circles are these geometrically complex patterns, often appearing overnight with stalks bent rather than broken, that leads us straight into the stories that make this phenomenon so captivating and, well, controversial.
And the level of mathematical sophistication seen in many of the designs really elevated the discussion pretty quickly, didn't it? It moved far beyond just simple mischief or vandalism.
Absolutely. We started seeing patterns incorporating really advanced geometrical concepts, things like intricate fractals and specific mathematical sets.
You're likely thinking of formations like the one near Barbary Castle back in 1991. It perfectly exhibited the geometric ratios of a tetrahedron projected onto a 2D plane. Then later, even more complex patterns appeared, formations that seemed to reflect the structure of the Mandelbrot set.
For listeners who might not be familiar, the Mandelbrot set is maybe the most famous fractal. It's an infinitely complex, self-similar pattern generated by a surprisingly simple, iterative mathematical formula.
And rendering something like that, a recognizable section of the Mandelbrot set, spanning dozens or even hundreds of meters across a field, that requires incredibly intricate mapping, surveying, planning. It just completely defied the popular image of a couple of pranksters out for a laugh in the dark.
It suggested something much more advanced, maybe even automated processes were involved in some cases. The precision required is just staggering.
But perhaps the most powerful story, the one that really propelled the phenomenon into the realm of potential interstellar communication, has to be the 2001 Chilbolton formation.
Right. This was the one that appeared directly next to the Chilbolton radio telescope in Hampshire, England. And it looked, well, strikingly similar to a famous message humanity had deliberately sent out into space years earlier.
Exactly. It mirrored the arecibomessage, which was beamed into space from the Arecibo Observatory back in 1974. That message contained basic information about humanity and Earth, encoded in binary.
And this crop formation seems like a direct reply. But the details, when decoded, were different. Profoundly different and highly specific.
When researchers analyzed the binary pictogram laid out in the wheat, they found the sender, whoever or whatever it was, had rewritten the fundamental data points humanity sent. Most significantly, the formation showed a revised DNA structure.
It changed the fundamental element for life from carbon, which is the basis of all known life on Earth, to silicon. That suggested a possible silicate-based life form, a classic sci-fi concept, but here it was, apparently laid out in a field.
The sender's data block also depicted a solar system vastly different from our own. It showed, I believe, 3 additional small planets and a much larger central body compared to what we transmitted about our system. Hints of a different homeworld, perhaps, or maybe even a commentary on our own system's actual structure.
And the figure of the sender itself was changed too, wasn't it?
Yes. The simple human stick figure from the arecibomessage was replaced by a distinct, large-headed bipedal figure. It seemed like a clear communication of an alien, or at least non-human, presence. It's hard to overstate the impact that formation had.
And beyond specific cases like Chilbolton, the sheer scale and speed of creation add to the mystery. You mentioned formations appearing overnight. Some are truly enormous.
The famous Milk Hill Formation, also from 2001, is a prime example. It consisted of 409 individual circles arranged in a massive, complex spiral pattern, hundreds of feet across. And yes, it appeared in a single night.
The logistics for human hoaxing on that scale, in darkness without leaving tracks or making noise, it becomes incredibly challenging to explain. You'd need lights, surveying equipment, a large coordinated team working silently for hours.
And adding another layer to this sense of the impossible are the numerous eyewitness accounts. It's not just the patterns themselves, it's what people sometimes report seeing or experiencing around the time they form.
Like, what kind of accounts are we talking about?
Farmers, pilots flying overhead, researchers staking out fields, they frequently report unusual atmospheric phenomena. The most common recurring sighting involves small, bright balls of light, often described as orange or white, seen maneuvering silently just above the crops, sometimes right before a new formation is discovered.
And people actually entering the fresh formations, they report things too.
Yes, investigators going into the field shortly after discovery often report distinct physical sensations and even measurable anomalies. There's often a strange, quite distinct smell, repeatedly described as like electrical burning or ozone.
Suggesting maybe some kind of intense energy release?
Possibly. And the surrounding grass, even outside the flattened area, sometimes registers as electrically charged. Static electricity effects. These are harder for skeptics to dismiss as purely psychological.
It's also interesting how seriously some of these were apparently taken by official bodies.
That's true. The military response, particularly in the UK during the peak years, further underlines that these weren't always dismissed as simple pranks. Following the appearance of some highly complex designs, patterns sometimes nicknamed insectograms because they resemble insects, or others looking like complex circuitry, there were reports of increased official surveillance.
Roadblocks were sometimes set up around affected fields, more intensive monitoring. It suggests that the intricacy and sheer scope of some patterns were viewed, at least for a time, as something potentially significant, maybe even a national security concern, not just art or mischief.
So when you combine the advanced geometry, the overnight appearances, reports of strange lights, odd smells, electrical effects, well, it's really no surprise, is it? It's perfectly understandable why people started looking far beyond ordinary explanations.
Absolutely. These captivating stories and apparent anomalies feed directly into what are often termed fringe theories, explanations that step outside conventional science. The most pervasive is that crop circles are sophisticated messages.
Messages from whom, according to these theories?
The candidates vary widely. Extraterrestrial intelligences are probably the most popular, but also theories involving divine beings, interdimensional entities, a kind of collective consciousness sometimes called the Watchers, or even Gaia, the Earth's own intelligence, communicating.
And the idea is that these are just random patterns, but deliberate communications.
Exactly. The sheer density of information seemingly encoded within the geometry, the mathematical ratios, the astronomical alignments, the symbolism suggests to proponents that they are rich in symbolic, perhaps even esoteric knowledge, not just pretty pictures, but meaningful content.
One prominent line of interpretation really leans into this message idea, viewing the circles as encoded prophecies, often centered on future events, particularly impending astronomical events or interventions by these higher powers.
Right. Proponents of this theory spend enormous effort analyzing the pictograms, the shapes, the layouts, claiming they detail a complex timeline of future celestial events, often involving comets or asteroids.
They use the geometry and specific symbols found in the crops to try and track celestial bodies, suggesting the circles are predicting, I believe, 6 major future comets, labeled comets A through F.
That's the theory. 6 comets destined to strike or significantly impact Earth over the coming centuries. It frames the entire phenomenon as a kind of profound cosmic warning system laid out in fields for us to decode.
And these predictions get remarkably specific, don't they?
Oh, incredibly specific. Some research stemming from this line of thought forecasts that Comet B, for instance, is due to make a devastating appearance around the winter of 2038-2039. The resulting chaos, both geophysical and societal, is referred to as the cometary era.
Triggering dramatic global shifts. What kind of shifts are supposedly predicted?
We're talking major political and societal consequences that proponents claim are detailed right there in the flattened wheat. Things like the decline of major world monarchies, a huge reduction in the popularity of things like spectator sports, and fundamental restructuring changes to American governance and even its currency.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot to decode from patterns in wheat.
It is. But the core of this particular prophetic message isn't all doom and gloom. It eventually transitions from warning to promise. The interpreters claim the circles also contain images detailing new, reliable food sources.
New food sources? How so?
Biologically superior plant species, supposedly depicted in the patterns, designed to eliminate world hunger after the celestial cleansing or restructuring has taken place, implying a kind of biological renewal orchestrated by the senders, whoever they may be.
Okay, so that's the prophecy angle. Are there other major fringe interpretations?
Yes, another extensive interpretation moves away from specific predictions and views the formations through the lens of sacred geometry. This perspective focuses on the shapes themselves, things like the flower of life pattern, spirals adhering to the golden ratio, complex polygons.
The idea here being that these geometric forms aren't just random pretty shapes, but represent a kind of universal language.
Precisely. A language reflecting a divine or fundamental order embedded in the very structure of reality itself. It connects back to ancient civilizations, the Egyptians, the Greeks, Pythagoras, who believed specific mathematical forms were the fundamental blueprints of the universe.
And the location matters here too, right? the connection to ancient sites.
Very much so. The frequent appearance of circles near places like Avebury, Silbury Hill, Stonehenge sites, often believed by proponents to be built on nodes or intersections of geodetic energy lines, is seen as strong confirmation of this cosmic connection. These sites were thought to enhance spiritual or telluric energy.
So this links the patterns directly to what? Earth's own energy current.
Line.
That's the idea, suggesting the circles might represent resonance patterns created by fundamental frequencies of the Earth or the universe. It echoes the principles of sematics.
Sematics, that's the study of visible sound, correct, where vibrations at specific frequencies create complex geometric forms in materials like sand or water. Exactly. So if the universe operates on underlying frequencies that manifest as mathematically perfect geometry, then perhaps a naturally occurring or even an extraterrestrially induced energy frequency could hypothetically imprint itself onto the landscape, literally making the vibrational pattern visible in the crops.
That elevates the crop circles from just pictograms or messages sent to us to potentially a direct manifestation of the universal language of harmony and vibration.
Right. The implication is quite powerful. Maybe the phenomenon isn't an external message being sent to us, but rather the Earth or the universe itself vibrating at certain frequencies, momentarily making its underlying mathematical structure visible in a receptive medium like a crop field. It really challenges the idea that these patterns hold no deeper, perhaps even spiritual or cosmic significance.
Okay, so at first glance, that extraordinary narrative, the interstellar replies like Chilbolton, the incredible fractal precision, the cometary prophecies decoded from wheat, it can seem incredibly convincing, almost overwhelming.
It's easy to get swept up in the sheer strangeness and potential meaning of it all. But this is beyond the known, and this is the crucial part where we have to step back and let science and grounded reason weigh in. We need to look closely at the physical evidence actually found in these fields.
And let's be clear, skeptics correctly ground the whole argument, initially at least, in confessed human hoaxes.
Yeah.
That has to be acknowledged up front.
Absolutely. The most famous example, which really shifted public perception, involved two men, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley. In 1991, they came forward and admitted to having started the modern phenomenon back in the late 70s.
And they demonstrated how they did it, didn't they? Using pretty simple tools, planks of wood, rope, a sighting device made from wire. They showed how they could stomp down the crops quite effectively to create those early simple circles.
That demonstration, plus other invented hoaxes over the years, some for advertising, some just as pranks or art, definitely led to a dominant public narrative. Oh, crop circles, they're all just man-made.
Which is understandable, but perhaps an oversimplification. Because that easy dismissal often ignores or downplays the specific physical evidence that has been collected by researchers from some of the most complex, seemingly authenticated formations. Evidence that doesn't quite fit the simple board and rope explanation.
What kind of evidence are we talking about? Stuff that contradicts manual flattening.
Well, as we touched on earlier, the state of the plants themselves. While simple hoaxes often feature broken, snapped, or bruised stems from being crushed, many formations considered anomalous show plants altered in ways that suggest exposure to intense, rapid energy.
Mechanisms seemingly far beyond just physical pressure from boards and ropes.
Exactly. The key evidence is often found at the microscopic level. Scientific analysis, like work done by biophysicist W.C. Levengood and others, documented physical anomalies far beyond simple bending. They found expanded nodes on the stems.
Those knuckles on the stalk look swollen or stretched.
Yes, appearing as if they've been rapidly heated from the inside out, causing the moisture within the node to expand very quickly, effectively steaming the node and making it pliable enough to bend over without breaking the stalk's outer wall.
That sounds like microwave heating, almost.
That's often the analogy used.
Wow.
This rapid internal heating leads to observable effects like elongated cells within the node, sometimes even expulsion cavities or tiny holes blown out of the nodes, and even microscopic charring. Effects attributed to a brief, intense burst of heat, likely occurring in what's called a reducing atmosphere, an environment low in oxygen which would prevent outright burning.
And creating that effect manually across a whole field overnight.
Proponents argue a human hoaxer would need to be, as one researcher put it, an extremely sophisticated plant physicist, equipped with some kind of advanced, portable, microwave or focused energy device. Not impossible, perhaps, but certainly far beyond planks and ropes.
And the energy levels involved?
Calculations suggest the energy required to produce these changes in the plant nodes is significant. One researcher even noted the energy figure was high enough that they personally wouldn't want to be present during a formation event, citing the risk of severe skin damage from whatever was causing it. Yet the plants remained largely intact, just bent.
So the evidence isn't just in the plants themselves.
No, the physical evidence extends to the soil beneath the formations. Scientific teams, analyzing soil samples, observed changes like increased crystallization of the soil matrix, particularly clay minerals, specifically within the flattened areas compared to control samples outside.
Increased crystallization. What does that suggest?
It typically suggests exposure to significant heat or electromagnetic energy. But here's the scientific contradiction that becomes really puzzling. The amount of energy suggested by the damaged plant cell structures and the soil crystallization affects energy levels, sometimes described as indicative of high-energy physics, should logically have completely destroyed the plants.
Right. It should have basically incinerated or vaporized the wheat, not just gently bent it over and maybe woven it together.
Precisely. Yet the crops remain bent, often continuing to grow, sometimes described as being intricately woven together at the base. It's a major paradox. Evidence of high energy, but without the expected destructive effects on the delicate biological material.
Is there other physical evidence that's hard to explain?
Perhaps the most compelling, though often less publicized, physical evidence comes from radiological analysis of soil samples. Some researchers, including Levengood's team, detected statistically significant anomalies in radiation levels within formations.
Unusual radiation? Like what?
Specifically, they reported finding short-lived radioisotopes in the soil that shouldn't normally be there. Analysis hinted at the presence of isotopes like bismuth-207, which is not naturally abundant on Earth.
Bismuth-207. How would that get there?
Its presence strongly suggests that the area was potentially bombarded by high-energy charged particles, things like thermalized neutrons, hot protons, or alpha particles. These particles could have activated elements already present in the soil, transmuting them into these unusual short-lived radioactive isotopes. That's a pretty extraordinary claim, requiring extraordinary evidence, of course.
Okay, so we have these anomalies, bent nodes, soil crystallization, potential radiation signatures that seem to challenge the simple hoax explanation. Are there scientific theories that try to account for these effects, maybe natural processes?
Yes, absolutely. Scientists have proposed natural mechanisms. The leading contender for a while, particularly for the earlier, simpler patterns, was Dr. Terence Meaden's plasma vortex theory.
Plasma vortexes, like miniature electrically charged whirlwinds.
Essentially, yes. Meaden proposed that under specific atmospheric conditions, intense, small-scale, rotating columns of ionized air plasma could form. These are similar in principle to dust devils, but carrying significant electrical charge and electromagnetic energy.
And how would these create cropcircles?
The idea is that these charged vortexes, perhaps interacting with the Earth's magnetic field or local terrain, could discharge their energy onto the field. This concentrated burst of electromagnetic energy could rapidly heat the moisture in the plant nodes, causing them to bend, and the swirling motion could create the circular or spiral patterns.
So it offers a potential explanation for the bent nodes and the circular shapes without needing human hoaxers or aliens.
It does provide a plausible naturalistic mechanism for some of the observed effects and patterns, especially the simpler ones. And the atmospheric conditions thought to favor these vortexes often correlate with the areas and times of year when crop circles frequently appear.
But does the plasma vortex theory explain everything? The complex pictograms, the fractals, the bismuth-207?
That's where it faces challenges. While plasma vortexes might explain simpler circles and some energy effects, the theory struggles to account for the extreme geometric precision of the later highly complex pictograms, things like fractals or binary code messages. It also doesn't readily explain the presence of specific, non-naturally occurring isotopes. It forces scientists to admit there are aspects of the phenomenon that still push the boundaries of known atmospheric physics and conventional explanations. #closing statement.
So where does that leave us? The phenomenon of crop circles seems to remain this complex duality, doesn't it? On one hand, we absolutely have clear evidence of human ingenuity, artistry, and sometimes just straightforward deception or advertising.
Undeniably, hoaxing is a confirmed part of the story. But on the other hand, we have these persistent, documented scientific anomalies, the specifically bent nodes, the changes in soil crystallization, the electrical effects, those potential radiation signatures that, well, they can't easily be dismissed as all being simple pranks.
They stand as these spectacular, often beautiful reminders etched onto our landscape that the boundaries of our current understanding, scientific, maybe even philosophical, are constantly being challenged, whether they're ultimately terrestrial art, undiscovered atmospheric physics, or something else entirely.
They remain deeply mysterious. The continued study, the continued reporting from fields around the world encourages you, the listener, to remain curious, to maybe push beyond established boundaries in your own thinking and hold seemingly contradictory possibilities in mind at the same time.
They really do invite a kind of reevaluation of what we consider possible technologically, mathematically, maybe even metaphysically in our world.
And they force us to think about the very nature of communication. Could there be languages based not on words, but on fundamental principles, mathematics, geometry, maybe even biological structure itself? Could these be the only reliable ways to convey truly vast, complex information across immense distances of space or time, or maybe even across dimensions? That's it for this journey beyond the known. If the unknown calls to you, do not forget to like, subscribe, and follow. There is so much more waiting to be discovered. And if you really want to help us out, consider becoming a member. With Secret Passage, you will unlock early access to our episodes, our audiobook library, Audiobook Underground, and a rotating list of curated wonders, other videos we recommend for curious minds. For those who want it all, Vault Access gives you everything, plus a board seat where you can request topics for us to explore in future episodes. Your support keeps the adventure alive.